getting ready to start. So cool to see this venue buzzing like this. For all of you that have been a part of Mesh and the startup scene for a long time, we've had that buzz in there for several years. But Corona fucked that up, and now we're going to try to create the same buzz in here. So today we're going to do a bit of a double event here. We have one thing we really would like to do, and that is to finish up the building project, unveil the whole building, and a couple of cool projects that we have. And then this is the 6th event in the TechTownHall series that we have. So once a quarter, we do a main event within one of 3 or 4 main topics. So this time, the topic is the funding edition, and we're going to go deeper into the status of funding. But before we do that, I want to dive a little bit into the unveiling of this building and tell you a little bit about what we will do after this content session is over. So, ta-da, trommevirvel. We have been building here for a little bit more than a year now, and as with all good building projects, you use a little bit more time than you tell all the members. So I want to start by thanking all the members for being patient with us. I hope you're happy now. I think we have a really cool, great hub that's going to stand out for the next 10 years. And we would love for as many people as possible to stay after the event. We're opening the rooftop terrace right about the time when the thunder and lightning and wind is coming in. We'll serve some food up there and down here. And the whole building will be open. We'll have an open house. And we're finally done with all the renovations. And that feels great. And as a side note, we've actually also renovated digs in Trondheim, and we're done with the renovations there as well. And on Friday, we'll do a similar event to this in Trondheim. So our focus now shifts from that over to the content part of what we do. And our goal is to make this venue as lively and as fun and as inspiring and as important as the other hub and the atrium and the backyard. We've kind of moved over there. So we also want to invite all of you in to do events with us and fill this space with more content and more life going forward. And that's our focus going forward here. So in the renovation part, that's the one big unveiling we want to do. I would like to thank Kravik Jørenland, the main architect that we have had internally for the interior part of what we've done. And then I would like to thank Sparebanken and all their partners that have been a part of delivering this project and doing it. We've spent more than a year on it. It's been more than 30 million in the project, a pretty important and hard project to lead. And then internally, we've had four guys, actually, typically in the building industry, doing a lot. So I want to thank KK, Mats, Lage, and Ope. Ope is the partner from that side, and he's not an internal part of the team, but I think we can call him that. We've known each other for 10 years, and he's very internal to the team. So I want to say thank you to all of those, and then also a special thank you to the ones who've been operating during the renovations here. So Chris, Sondre, Lage, Amanda, and the whole team here, you've done a great job, and now we can focus purely on the content going forward, which is a lot more fun than focusing on the bricks. So yes, that's great. Takk, Jeanette. Takk. And then there are two other cool projects that we've worked on for this opening that I would like you to have a look at after this content session. We have hung up about 150 pictures throughout the whole building from our history and from members. So the whole house is open. A lot of you will find a picture of you or somebody you know here. And it would be also very cool if you get inspired by it and you send us pictures from the coolest parts of your startup journey so that we can hang up another 100 pictures of that on the wall here. That's not what we want to do. We want to get the soul in, we want to get the life in, we want to get the content in. And the last project that we're happy to be able to unveil now is our Hall of Fame meeting rooms. At our 10-year anniversary, we launched a Hall of Fame. You can see them on the back there. They're at both hubs. We have 15 that are inducted so far. We will induct people going on or continuously over the next years. And what we've done is that we've given each of them a meeting room. So all our common open meeting rooms, They have been named 101, 102, 103, up to 115. That's a little bit boring, so we've decided to change that. So going forward, we will name all those meeting rooms after our Hall of Fame inductees. And the Hall of Fame inductees are people that over the last 10 to 15 years have been a part of creating the first successful generation of startup founders in Norway, and people who have been central in establishing the startup ecosystem. They've all built companies that are worth hundreds of millions, billions, or even tens of billions of kroners, or contributed heavily to kind of building the startup scene. So here we have 6 meeting rooms that we're opening now. If you start from the back in that corner, we have 101 now switching over to Truls. He's the founder of Douchebags. They used that name until they went heavy into the US, and they got a lot of pushback on the name Douchebags over there, and no distributors, nobody wanted to work with them. So now it's DB Journey. I think if he tells the story, it's a much more strategic choice, blah, 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 blah. But it was because he didn't fully know what a douchebag was, and he didn't fully know how English-speaking people would relate to that. So that came as a little bit of a surprise to him, and he had to change that when he expanded to English-speaking countries. The next room, 102, will change to Kjartan, one of the founders of Unacast. He was one of the strongest voices with the strongest, most direct opinions. They could be provoking and everything, but also very valuable and challenging. And for the first 5 years, he was in the papers almost as much as Trond Rybak Knudsen is now. So his focus has shifted a little bit towards the US, and they have a main office in New York. But they're doing good, and he's also coming. Both Truls and Kjartan are coming later and will join us tonight. Then we have 103, Amir, marketer. We've had a lot of great companies here, and a lot of companies that have become unicorn companies. But Marketer and Amir, they're probably the hardest hustlers of all the startup people we've had here, and they're the company to grow from 1 to 50 people the fastest. So he has made an artwork, a big M that resembles the M we had in the backyard over there. It looks like something my kid would make, my 4-year-old. It's not that impressive, but it means a lot to him and them. So you should find him later on today and ask him what that's all about. I'm at least going to do that. The next one is Anniken and Joachim, 657. They started Superblaze, they started 657. They've been the most important people within the creative tech field. And Anniken has also been extremely important when it comes to female angel investors and investing in general, and also an angel being one of the early angel investors. So they have the room that was prior 104 is now Anniken and Joachim. Now it's starting to get difficult already. 105 is the next one. And now we have two great founders with us here and there. The corner room, the first room you see when you come in was 105. Going forward, the first thing you see when you come into Mesh is a pajamas, which is Jeanette's pajamas. I'm sure that has an interesting story, so I would like to get that story from you.
Thank you. Switch this on.
Is it on? Yeah.
Okay, so when we launched in New York, I'm the founder and co-founder of Villoid. And when we launched in New York, we had borrowed the house. That was a 7 stores private house in Soho.
Yeah, and it was the grandkid of George Soros that lived there. Yeah,
that was also a fun fact.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to tell him that we wanted to use it as a launch place. We didn't have any money. And so we decided that a pajamas would be great if we had a pajamas party, because then we wouldn't ruin anything. So that's the pajamas we launched in, basically, in 2015.
That's very cool. And when I was at that house and met you in New York. I don't know if you remember, but I remember it very vividly because it was a 7-story house on Manhattan. So I was like, how did you manage to do that? So she's relatively networked and has a lot of hustle in her. And I also met Alexa Chung, which you're pictured with in there. I didn't know who that was, but that's the biggest diva I think I've ever met. She's the Jenny Skavlan of New York, and I couldn't speak to her directly. I had to speak through her manager. So an interesting network, great founder, one of the most persistent we have. The last one, the 106, we've named after Johan. He has been I would say the kind of most central founder in our startup story, and the one that has had kind of the most, he's represented the pay it forward culture in the best way, I would say. And at the same time, started one of the companies that have really put the Norwegian startup scene on the map, Kahoot. So what is it that you decided to put into your room?
I guess I didn't want it to become like a Kahoot mausoleum of me since I left. And I think most of the founders here are still in the company that they founded. So I decided to put up pictures from our journey afterwards that we started in Entrepreneurship 1, focusing on the startup community, paid forward, learned by Anders, and our refocus onto the ocean. Because being around the whole world in the classrooms, we realized the ocean is not part of our curriculum. It's not taught. It's not part of what we're doing. Everything is land-based. Mathematics, everything is done land-based. So that was our focus. And we thought, what if we put entrepreneurs, politicians, investors on a boat? Maybe some of them will fall in love with it. And they have. So we put up pictures from the journey of entrepreneurship, which you might like. And I have to say that we've very much done that together with the Mesh as well. I used to have an office up there for free with entrepreneurship. So yeah.
Nobody gets offices for free. That's fuck.
Sorry. I'm trying to hustle a new one.
Yeah, so I can finish off with so all the Hall of Fame famers, they get credit, and it's their meeting rooms now, and they can use them. So Johan is the first one who started hustling to get more credit for free for his room. So yeah, there's still entrepreneurial juice left in him. And we have a lot of the other Kahoot founders still being here around, having an office here. So that's also great. I saw Truls coming in. Are you straight out of a board meeting? Do you want to say one word about your meeting room? I don't think you want to, so, but you have to. So just a little fun fact. So a little flex, I guess we can say. If you look at the front page of DN today, Truls and the CEO of Douchebags, or DB Journey, is depicted now having passed a $250 million in revenue and growing with almost 50% a year. So you have the naked Marbella picture on the wall. What's that all about?
That was actually you who chose that, Anders, because you looked really good at that time.
Fuck. That's actually true. I haven't worked out in 8 years, and that's 8 years ago.
No, but I think we put some pictures in there, and one is kind of when we started to build the culture of the company. It was, paying it forward. We had Anders in there. We tried to do some CrossFit at our events and kind of build this corporate culture early on how we can make this more than just a job, make it a community, not just externally, but also internally. So we had these rituals, and doing CrossFit was one of them. So every time we did our kickoffs, we always went and had CrossFit with the entire team, always. It was very small back then, so so it worked well, and Anders was part of that. So it was also good with, we started to have our first office here in Mesh. So Anders has been a part of the story the entire time, so it felt natural to have that as well.
Yeah. Great. And that CrossFit part, on that team, you had Jon Olsson, a professional skier, Aksel Lund Svindal, a professional skier, and Torleif Alsan, a madman who wants to be a professional skier. So those CrossFit sessions were really, really, really hard, but a lot of fun. So thank you. With that, the Hall of Fame rooms are launched and usable for everybody. You should ask all of them and the ones coming about the stories they've put up, and start using them. With that, let's go to the Tech Town Hall part of this event. So for the Tech Town Hall, what we want to do once a quarter, or that was how I thought of doing it. Now, so I'll start with introducing the ones that we will put up on stage. And the first one, in every kind of dynamic founder startup duo, there is one tan guy selling and being out there and marketing, and then there's one talented guy, a little bit more pale, working in Excel and actually working on the details, knowing the details. So I shouldn't be talking too loud, because my pale Excel guy, Coco, is right over there, and we've got Sandwater's a little bit pale Excel guy right here. And he's going to take us into the details of how the funding scene has developed over the last 10 years, up until today, up until July, and give us 10 minutes of an analysis and a deep dive into where we're at. And then we brought on some interesting people to build on what he says, or challenging him a little bit. I've already introduced to you. As I said, I had to Google all the others and push the news button. For you, I just had to go to DN, and I found a story right away. If you haven't heard of Trond Ruben Knudsen, you're probably new to the startup scene. He's used everywhere because he has a little bit the American mentality. He thinks big, he puts his money where his mouth is, and he is able to say a lot of smart stuff about a lot of topics. Or we're just stupid enough to not go as deep. And then, this is also a fun, kind of a little bit cliche startup story. You have Jon Kåre, one of the founders of Oda, unicorn startup, then going on to become a VC. And what VCs typically want to portray is that they are these wise sages. They go with all their knowledge into the mountains, and they come back with all this wisdom. So, in all modesty, he has put up Mada Blanc, one of the most famous holy mountains of Himalaya, as his background pictures for that story. And he's now come down to us to share that wisdom about funding and where we're at and where we're going. So we have a holy perspective here as well. And then lastly, we needed a juggernaut. So we got the one, this story is from 2022. So we had Sandwater launching a fund in 2022, and we had Schibsted Venture becoming the juggernaut, the #1 investor, doing the most funding rounds and also doing all rounds, or all stages in 2022. So Christian is coming in to tell us about how it was to do all the giant rounds that we've had to price down a little bit now. But we hope that he's going to stick to it and be the juggernaut that we need, and we hope that Schibsted will keep on taking that key position going forward. And don't mistake him for Truls. They have a little similarity in the hairline going a little bit up. But that's what Truls usually says, is because there's so much activity in the brain that he doesn't need the hair to stay warm. So I'm also expecting brilliance from you on stage. Yes. Thank you. And then I will introduce the founders as well, because we're going to do this in 2 sessions. We're going to do an investor panel after Morten, and then a founder panel to also get some depth into the VC discussion. So, as always with founders, when you Google them and get the stories, the good ones manage to get a good narrative out, even in bad times. So, with these 3 founders, it looks like everything is just going straight to heaven, even though there are hard times. So, prisingen almost double up. 4 verdt en halv milliard, and there's so much interest that we don't know what to do with all the interest. And Geir Atle, it's hard for others, but it's great for me. So we'll get them in to explain how it is to be a founder. From the articles, it looks like it's super easy, everything is booming. I'm hoping to get some insight into how the last 2-3 years have been, because I think there's more to the story. So with that, I want to give the clicker to Morten and get some brains up on stage and go a little bit deeper.
Thanks, Lars.
Great. So, Anders, I just think I just found out your next topic on the TechTownHall, and I think you're really good at roasting. So maybe we can have like a roasting session for maybe all the Hall of Famers. That would be a great part, actually. Yeah. Is this the wrong one, or?
I decided because we're a little bit late.
Okay.
Those topics at the end.
Okay, brilliant.
Let's go back to that. Funding.
So, talking about roasting, yeah. So shortly, talking about my complexity, I'm probably even paler and more blonde today. I just had my first kid this July, so hopefully it's my DNA which kind of comes from with the complexity compared to Tom Evan. He has a great town, and I'm quite envious of it. What I'll do for you today is I'll paint you a little picture, which is actually quite similar to the Norwegian weather this summer. Quite dark and gloomy, but hopefully a little bit sunshine in the end. Usually we're quite lucky to get the sun at the end of the day, so hopefully that will be the same picture we're painting today. So in short, just to kind of bring the long view on and go straight up in helicopter view. I think it's important to remember that up until last year, we actually laid back a 7-year bull run within the VC market, right? The world hadn't seen such a steep increase as it had the last 7 years. And it was a record new of VCs established, there was a record new unicorns established, and it was all driven by usually the tech and SaaS business, but you also got kind of climate and environment on top of that at the end, right? And then it came the period which we now all demise. It was the second half of 2022. Russia invaded Ukraine, you got the inflation, which we know all talk about, and you also got the interest rates, which kind of kicked up this correction, right? So we came from very high levels with a large correction in the second half of 22, and then we're now in 23. What's 23, right? At least we like to think about it as a new normal. You will see in my figures that compared to 2019, 2020, we're still increasing. Maybe from 21 and 22, we're a little bit down. That being said, cycles happen, right? It's part of the environment we're in, so it doesn't need to be that negative. I think the time now is really it's a flight to quality. There's still money around. You mentioned the article in the end with Trond Kristian. There was 100 million nakis per week, which goes into startups, which is a great figure, right? If you think about it. Things take a longer time, so I think everybody's seeing that momentum which you had in 21 isn't there anymore. You could raise money on Monday and then close it on Wednesday. Fredrik and Dune probably isn't there, but that's a great example on that, right? And still, the opportunities are there, built for the long term, right? The money is there, things takes time, and start building. So this is the global picture, right? So what's the Norwegian picture? This is the Norwegian picture overall on the long helicopter view. I think Norway has come from a level which has been, way too little funding going into the VC environment. If you view it in terms of the ecosystem, you talked about that, right? That since 2015, it's just been massive. Anders, you talked about it as well. Kind of when you established MES, there wasn't anything. Nobody talked about startups, right? So that environment and that ecosystem has kind of grown. It's kind of almost grown exponentially, right, up until 22. And actually,
and I guess we can also mention that everybody else started in 2008 with the financial crisis, and we started in 2015-16 with the oil crisis. So we're late to the party, and then
exactly, good point. So that's kind of the picture I want to paint for you to Norway. That we're coming from a very low bottom, and we're kind of catching up. That's the story. So when the world fell in 22, Norway actually grew, which is quite amazing. However, what we've seen, and that's kind of coming to the topic of this talk, what's the status so far in 23? It's actually quite gloomy. So far this year, it's been raised $462 million within VC funding, and it's been quite a dramatic fall. If you look at by quarter, it's been mainly underperforming both in terms of 21 and 22. What you see here are funding per quarters, and then the colors are the various years. So dark blue 20, red 23, light blue 22, and orange 21. And what you'll see is that Q1 and Q2 is actually underperforming in terms of 22 and 21, but we're actually outperforming 2020, which is important to bear in mind, right? We've put back us this huge amount of growth, and now we're maybe back to steady state. Still growing a lot, right? So without kind of leaning too much into these figures, it looks like we're on the track of actually exceeding 2020. Maybe we'll see 10 million nakis in VC funding, maybe, but it's at least better than 2020. So it's an important figure to take in place.
And it's important to note that you could have almost dropped the last red column, right?
Exactly.
It's July only, and we're all gone in July.
Exactly.
So if you take Q2, we're not that far behind 2021 even.
Exactly.
Which was kind of the first crazy year.
And we're actually tracking above, right? 2020, which is a positive thing. That being said, Norway has a lot of catching up to do. We were there almost in 2022. So on this kind of graph, you usually don't want to be on a graph where you have a thick middle waist. However, on this graph, you actually do want to have a thick middle waist. So what you see here is VC funding per capita, meaning how many dollars go into each country per head. And what you see is that Norway from 2018 has been quite immature compared to our neighbors, which we like to compare ourselves with. Sweden has had more than double the VC funding, almost the same as Denmark, while Finland was a little bit ahead. You see also the trends here, right? With the middle ways just expanding massively in 21, and then in 22, Norway's almost catching up to Sweden, going beyond and above Denmark, and almost catching up to Finland. However, back in 2023, we're deteriorating a little bit more. And the reason behind this is mainly due to the larger rounds. The Series A, B, C rounds are taking much longer time. So in 2020, we had, you mentioned Schibsted, we had a total of 7 rounds above $15 million. In Norway, we hadn't had one. The closest we're having is Waystron, which raised 450 million NOK, but it's still way beyond what we actually saw in 22. So I think seed rounds are there. Probably difficult to say for the guys not getting funding, but the money is there. 100 million NOK a week. However, kind of the larger rounds take much longer time.
We were in 2018. We were kind of we were 2x behind.
we were skinny. Exactly.
And then we started catching up, and what was catching up was mainly the early rounds. And then when the big money in the late stage rounds came in, that changed the mature markets a little bit more. So
exactly.
Sweden especially, but also a little bit more Denmark and Finland were more mature and could absorb more later stage rounds. That's why we didn't kind of fatten at that period. And then now that it's going back again, we have to build a little bit up again from a less mature market.
We're post-summer and back in the diet, right? That's basically where it is. But I think it's important to think that the foundation is there. And it's all to work through the cycle. And to give you a little bit flavor, I mentioned the timing, right? I just want to paint a global picture. Things take much more time, specifically on the later rounds. So what you see here is a curve I borrowed from Carta, which has a couple of really great data points. And what you see is actually the number of days between various rounds. So see specifically on the various timing from Series A to B rounds and from B to C rounds. On the A rounds, you've gone from like almost 700 days to 854. And on C rounds, it's even worse, right? It's from 750 to 967. So I think it's important to think that, okay, we're through a throw now. We're at potentially at a very shortfall, but the larger rounds takes longer time. And I think we just need to be patient and work through it. I think that's the most important thing we're doing right now.
Yeah, and as with my co-founder, who loves a little bit complex graphs. This is a little bit complex.
Yeah.
So here you have the time it takes from seed stage to Series A funding. So you have 2019 here, and then you have 2023. So to simplify it, it takes 150 to 200, 300 more days to close the rounds, and it takes longer time the later you get.
Correct, Anders. Thank you for that clarification. Further, we also see there's 2 things being impacted by the down round, right? It's time and it's pricing, basically valuations. So we talked about Norway being a quite immature market, and we see that clearly on pricing. Specifically, this graph shows you the dilution per round, which is basically what percentage do you have to give away to raise money of your cap table. And I think I just want to entail you kind of comparison of Norway funding versus US funding. If you look at Series A round and B round, Norwegian companies actually had to give away 22.7% and 23% on the A and B round, versus in peak market, US had to give away 16 and 12%, which is almost half, right? And that gap has started to close, but it's still there, which also entails that the market is still immature, but it's getting there. And I think we're going to talk about it, but we see, specifically in Sandwater, we see a lot of international investors now coming to Norway to get good deals, basically. They see that pricing is lower, and they know that there's a lot of quality here. So a couple of them are, for example, Gen Z Zero, which invested recently in Kahoot. We see a lot of American companies. National Grid is amongst the water, looking for energy companies. So I think this is just going to bring back that momentum of, where are the good deals? They're in Norway, and we need to paint that picture. Now over to a little bit of sunshine at the end here. I think it's always nice. I got my kid the 15th of July. I've been in the hospital and back home, so I didn't really care about the sunshine, and hence the complexity. But even though I also need some sunshine at the end of the day. So this is an important fact. This quarter, was actually the first time since the down round that funding actually started to increase. So what you see here on the white graph, which is the crucial one, is the amount of funding going into startups in the US. And what you see is that since Q4 21, it's actually started to increase from a bottom. And the other thing you see as well is that down rounds have started to decrease. So coming from the peak market there in Q4 and Q1, there were 5% of rounds which were down round. That actually was about to 20% by Q1 in 23, but that has also started to increase. So is there a light in the tunnel? Maybe, we don't know, but it's sure nice to at least get a little bit of a tan at the end.
Great. So okay, let's do a clap first. So before we get the VCs up, what is your analysis on the lag between the American venture market and startup scene and the Norwegian and Nordic startup scene?
No, it's great.
What do you expect? What is your looking into the spåkula? What do you think?
Yeah, no, expecting is always a nice thing, right? I think it's a very good point because now here comes the brains, right? But Goldman Sachs has done thorough analysis on this, and they are viewing the lag between public markets and the VC funding market within US, and also the VC funding in market in the US and the VC funding in Europe. And then maybe you have a lag from Europe to Norway, who knows? But what they specifically see is that you have a clear lag of 12 to 14 months between the drop or the increase in the public markets till that affects the VC funding market. And you also have a 12 months lag behind that as well. So potentially these effects, 12 months ahead of now, maybe we're starting to see an increase as well. But I think it's still a little bit of dark weather ahead of us, but the sunshine is hopefully definitely there.
Great. Thank you. You're already introduced, so with that, I'd like to get the other investors up. And I think if Trond, if you go there, if Jon Kåre, you go in the middle, and Christian next to me here. So what you're saying here then is that you hope that within a year we will see those effects coming here, and we will be it is turning, or we're at the bottom. Hopefully it will turn. I threw up your DN article where you're trying to take the macro view on where we are, looking back and looking forward. So Trond, you have great macro insight. Could you challenge this a little bit or build on it and give us your insight and perspective on this?
Yeah, I was interviewed by DN, and the first question was basically, are you still alive? And what's happening in a situation where there's zero capital coming into the startup market? So I felt it was incredibly important to give the bigger perspective. I think that we saw now that this ecosystem has grown in a terrific way. And is now so much more resilient than it was ever before, and that it's a good time to build in Norway, and there is capital available. I think you can see also that it's a pretty immature ecosystem, and that means that the further out in the rounds you get, the less capability, the less capital, and less competition. And I think you see that in the discounts. That means that I think when you are a really good Norwegian scale-up that are qualifying for doing Series C and D and continue to invest massively before you get to profitability, you will have to rely on international VC investors to a very large degree.
Yeah, I think I want to introduce everybody and get everybody in. I think that's a very good bridge to Jon Kåre. Because you were also one of the co-founders in Oda, and Oda is an example of that. A company that became a unicorn company. It has international potential. Yeah. You're doing things brilliantly, but you are in Norway, and you had the SoftBank, you had others starting to look and starting to invest, but we just had that market, kind of the late stage funding market, starting to mature, or actually kind of more being built. You had, yeah, I'll get to that with you also, but can you kind of how does it feel for a Oda founder? Who have had kind of 9 years of successfully raising a relatively short runway, and that strategy has worked every year. And then you get into this rougher climate, and then you were not able to raise with Oda. And Skyfall also, you are kind of segmented into some areas. So Can you elaborate around kind of late stage and also what sectors or areas within the startup scene have momentum and where is it hard now?
Yeah, I can say it's 2022 was much better to be a partner and venture capitalist in a newly raised fund in Skyfall than to be a co-founder and stock owner in Oda. But I think if you look at Oda's situation, I think being part of that funding round in 2022, you're and as you said, we're coming from 9 years with upward success, you start to finding benchmarks. And I remember when Klarna did their round, and you saw like 90% down with utvanning dilution. Then you just in a way start to see how the market was correcting and changing. And I think that was pretty much aligned with the end state. So
and I guess you get the same correction. You see the public markets, then you see the late stage, and then it trickles down and it stops somewhere. And it stopped before the early stages, partly, but it was hit. You were hit hard.
I think the problem with Klarna and Oda and several other, we also had several Norwegian examples coming out of 2021 with pretty much money, great funding, and a lot of speed and going to conquer the world. Which in a way is a good thing, and then suddenly capital becomes really expensive, and the view of the future becomes really dark. So yeah, it was just something that happens with the market totally, I think. And but so for being a later stage company with a lot of speed and gaining a lot of cost, it was dramatic. But then again, I think being really early, being also an investor in 2022, and now it's a much more positive and much better position to be in.
Yeah. Well, what about the different sectors? I know that you've been kind of big into crypto. The whole metaverse was one of the trends you were going for. And now there's always a new hype. There's also a new trend. There's also a new thing, and that some have their peaks.
Yeah, I think if you look at the macro perspective, it's still a lot of dark clouds on the skies. And I think what I'm really curious about is NVIDIA's Q2 reports coming out this evening. I think the whole world economy is relying on the results from NVIDIA. So right now you have the climate wave, but what I see as a really strong force that will have the impact to pull the world economy out of this shape we're in now to fight inflation. I think that's the potential that lies within AI. And it's obviously bubble tendencies and a lot of crazy stuff happening. It reminds me about metaverse last year's and crypto, and it's happening a lot of stuff. But I think I'm really optimistic about the time from if you take the Gartner hype cycle, you have the top of Mount Stupid first, and then at sometimes you come to the product of sustainability. And I think the time from Mount Stupid to product of sustainability will go much faster with AI. I hope for it at least than what we've seen with other like buzzwords, which I always also do believe will come, but it will takes more time.
Yeah, so you're sticking to your areas of expertise and the ones you believed in, the crypto, the kind of whole metaverse thing, also.
I think,
and you believe that those will come even though they're in a kind of steeper decline.
I discussed it with Johan earlier. When you're in invention, this space, you're in a way fighting the incumbents, and you're trying to convince people that what you're doing is smart. And the incumbents will fight you with everything they got, and the people that will use your service won't believe it after they've seen it work for six months. So it's, if you take a Venn diagram, it's a really hard place to be in. And I think. But it's in that sector innovation happens, and that's if you see 7 out of 10 of the most valuable companies in the world, they come from this intersection. They're venture funded started by crazy entrepreneurs that really has great passion for time. And I'm happy to work in a 10-year long fund, and we're looking through this turmoil, and I do believe that it's a lot of serious and big problems that needs to be solved, and it's a huge untapped potential with technology and solution that will solve these problems going ahead. So I'm realist optimist, with the long-term glasses on.
And it was great. I think we have Tuk here now. He's in the founder panel. So we have one of our best kind of crypto founders here who'll take us into the inside of how it's been within that space as well. So a bridge to what you started talking about, which was also this, you had a maturing stage. And what this pear-shaped graph showed is that when the big money started flowing into Norway, things happened really fast. You had the Euronext boom, 100 companies going on there in half a year or something. You had the Nordic secondaries fund being established. You had secondary markets emerging. You had CVCs, corporate venture capital, coming in at all stages. You had mega rounds. And what I would call kind of a maturing and healthy market for startups and tech companies growing. And Schibsted is one of the kind of key players in that, and you were a part of that. As I think you said now, the first thing Dan asks is this dead? What is happening? And kind of if you're a big corporate worth tens of billions of kroners, you will get the kind of the negativity first, and you'll be asked by your conservative shareholders, why don't you focus on core business and cut everything else? That's one of the reasons why there are a lot of opportunities for us also now. But where are you at now? What do you think about the whole funding scene that was maturing? And where are you as one of the most important Nordic corporate venture capitalists in that picture? And what are you thinking about the way forward?
Yeah, I think that, so I've been around for 10 years, and Trond Riiber, you have been around for 10 years as well in the venture space, right? So yeah. Trond Riiber and I were still sitting here, and no, but I have to say that it's still there. That's the easy answer to your question, right? So I think what we see in general is that there's it's more of a reluctancy. There's more a time for waiting out. The IPO market is sort of dead. I had lunch today with a corporate from, they have no activity going, even though the obvious cases that would go public for a year or two ago, they're waiting. They're waiting something else, right?
Yeah, so the IPO market is kind of closed down for now.
Sort of closed out.
And the late stage market, if we go to that, you were one of the kind of participants in the mega rounds. Yeah. You were not the SoftBank pouring in 10 billions, and but you were kind of you were the ones in between the early stage that a lot of us here represent and those, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, we've been investing actively since 2017. So we've been part of smaller rounds and larger rounds. But I would say that in general, all the players are there still. I think that what separates, I think this is a time for separation, especially among CVCs. I think that you see the CVCs that truly have investment and venture investments as part of their core business. Especially then, I'm talking for Schibsted, will keep on investing in hard times and see also hard times as an opportunity. I think that you need to think out. I talked with Sandwater here earlier. I think it's the time for existing investors and new investors is to you need to think out of the box. You have completely different toolbox that you need to use with your existing companies to create value. So we see a lot more secondary opportunities. We see joint ventures. We see consolidation of markets opportunities that I think that we need to be better at in Norway, as in general as well.
Can you, or the rest of the panel, let's include everybody now, elaborate a little bit on that as an investor in downtimes like this? What you're mentioning is kind of a secondary market emerging. It is possible to buy shares from owners and companies and get in the back door at potentially lower valuations. There are things that open up. It is interesting to understand how you change your strategies or what you think and what kind of investor opportunities that open up. Because I think for all founders here, it is always very important to understand your most important partner. So can you talk a little bit to that? How the investor strategies change? Who wants, Morten?
Yeah, no, I can start and please others chime in. But I think the secondary market is something which is extremely interesting these days, right? And we see it in the US now. We see Tiger, for example, have started to pool together their investments towards one opportunity fund and starting offering secondaries in there. It's also a business opportunity here for the software guys in the room, right? You have a company in Canada, which is called Hive, which has specialized in offering secondary opportunities in shares in non-public funded companies, right? and they trade on discounts, they are market participants there, but creating liquidity in the secondary market is definitely something which needs to be done and something which is important to get to the throw. And that's exactly what you're on, Christian, right? It's a market which is, when one market is going down, maybe another market is going up.
Ron?
Well, I'm not a fan of secondary. And the reason is that I think the key role of a strategic investor is to bring capital to the company. And when you do a secondary, you give capital to the investor. So I think it's important for companies to focus on proving to the next level of investors that in tough environment like we have currently, they can spend money in a productive way. I think it's hard to tell you exactly how quick you should grow, but you should be prepared to talk about your milestones, your KPIs, and your productivity, cash conversion, kind of how you actually are, carefully spending money.
Yeah,
and I think that if you are in that position, you can attract new capital.
Yeah, so if you talk to the secondary market, you're not getting fresh capital in,
No.
and you're not selling the potential. You have you're fighting over shares that are in the company. But what you're saying then is that you have to change your strategy as a founder to be able to be attractive for investors now.
Yeah.
So that has also changed.
And you get less paid for the vision and more for proving that you can productively spend resources.
Yeah.
And many companies today are shifting, I think, their strategy from venture capital financing through all these different rounds to perhaps more growth, private equity type funding by getting quicker to break even. And I think that's the type of consideration you need to make so that you don't basically have a mismatch between what you can deliver and what type of investors you're trying to attract. And in today's world, having that equation correct is super important.
Christian?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Christian first.
No, just before you, Johan. Yes, but it's not binary, right? So it's not either or. I think that there's a special responsibility for all investors in hard times to think a couple of steps in advance, right? So what do we do with the cap table now? In example, doing a down round, what do we do to cap table now that will hit us, 3 years down the road, right? So because skewed cap tables will come out of these times, and that's not good for the attractiveness of these cases in 2-3 years. So
Yeah, Jan, give a challenge.
I'm just going to say, because what's interesting about the secondary market in the US was that because companies weren't going IPO because of the good times, the founders and the employees couldn't actually get liquidity, and that was a problem. So that's why I came in. It turned out to be a good thing for in a bad market. On the secondary, it's the same thing. A lot of founders struggle to have actually investors who said they're going to be active, they were passive. So they want to get rid of passive investors, or investors now then got bad liquidity. So they started getting machines in that was for good times, but now it's been their savior in bad times. We participated in several secondaries which you have to commit both to buy and invest. And they pick you very, very carefully. So I think it's actually, this is a time when actually the good secondary also come in, and we've been picked out to buy shares to be active, but it comes with a commitment.
And isn't that an interesting model? Because when
that's
there's
a savior in these times.
When there's a downtime, that's also a time to clean up, but you want to clean up and create the potential and forward momentum as well. So a mix of that is interesting.
I'm just going to say that's so funny. Good time solutions often are very good bad time saviors.
Cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in, Johan. Apologies, Jon Kåre, but a very clear example as well is SpaceX, right? It's a super heavy capex company which has been able to get continuous funding without being public due to having an active secondary market. So I totally agree. It's an enabler at the end of the day, right?
Okay. I want to. We can't go too much further, and this is a big topic. We could have spent 10 hours on it, but I think as an interesting note, we are discussing kind of secondary and slowing down, and early stage being relatively good, late stage being a little bit harder. But I think kind of you were saying that there is light here. We're at the same level that we were at in 2020. It's not that long ago. I started Mesh together with these guys in 2012. To me, and I think that's also a little bit what Trond aims at, the funding level this year is 10 times higher than it was in 2015. And we have a mature market. We have a generation of successful founders. We have VCs. We have angel investors. We have attention from the most important corporates, and the corporate VCs have gotten a lot more mandate to do more important stuff. So to me, I want to kind of finish off with a question that I find very interesting, because I feel that we're in the downturn now. I feel that Norway in 2008, we did not utilize that downturn at all when it comes to kind of going into tech sector full force and kind of becoming more innovative. So if you take a lot of the markets and countries that were hit harder by that financial crisis, they started competing on the international stage. And what was emerging and what is now the biggest sector internationally is the tech sector. 8 out of 10 companies, the most valuable companies in the world, are the tech companies now. You have Apple, Microsoft, all of those topping that list. We still have an oil economy and an oil fund. We're world leading in those sectors. And we can, in a way, we are very lucky. We can do like Saudi Arabia and Qatar and those countries, and we can just be the third generation heir and go into our future with the billions in the bank and oil working for us the next 50 years as well. But I think here in this room with investors and founders here, that's very uninspiring. And a lot of us will move to other countries if that happens. So we are in a downturn now, and that's when the opportunity to do new things is also the greatest. So if you end up with a positive, I'm a positive guy when it comes to this, give us some positive, build on the light and what you think, and what we should do to not get this kind of gloom and doom picture of it, but what to build on. And I also think it's important to say that because there are a lot of influential people in the startup scene here, and the story that we tell and how we portray it, that it's not just gloom and doom, but we're back to 2020 levels, and we're on our way up, and it's the second stage of the startup scene. We started after others. We've had a 10-year startup phase. Now we're maturing.
Can I start, Anders? Because
yeah.
I don't know if my point is that optimistic.
Okay. That's okay. That's good. That's good.
I don't think we should underestimate the question Trond got.
Yeah.
Because if we're looking for like the LPs and the people putting money into our funds, and the one talking to Kristin Skogenlund about what ships they should use their money about, in Norway, VC and this space is still immature, which it's still a bit exotic. If you look to the States, I mean, venture is a part of like the diverse portfolio of wealth. But what I'm a bit afraid of now is that we have had this really cool upturn, and then we got hit hard, and then we get this assumption. I think that's why it's so damn important for Trond, with the position he has, to really go out and talk about this, and we need to bombard the media about things are going really good. Because what I see from 2013 when we started Kolonial and Oda and until now, just the ecosystem as a whole, the talent, the people joining in, people wanting to be started, we're just at a total different place. We now have the right to play and the right to talk to the best international investors. But I got this at Startup Extreme in March. I talked to someone at the breakfast, and he told about the story that his daughter had just started at NHH in Bergen, and she was a bit shocked when she came home from the first family trip, because she said that the boys she started with, they're like idols and models. It was the characters from Exit. And this was dead serious. That's the life, that's the modeling they're going after. And if you go to the same school in Stockholm, who are the heroes? It's Daniel Ek, it's Siemiatowski. It's totally different other role models that they really are struggling and building their careers to build towards. So I think just to be able to talk to the press that it's going really well, we're having a maturing ecosystem, and also I'm really a fan of daring to have ambitions, but also lift up the people that really has ambitions, which is great with the people and Hall of Famer. It's really important, and we need to talk more about them and model them, because we have a lot of great role models, and we need that to be the coolest pathway.
So here to all here, let's build that instead of getting the jantelov coming. I want to round this off and get over to the founders. Who has a brilliant closing remark for us?
Well, the way I see it, we have massive opportunities in Norway to build fantastic companies over the next 5 to 10 years. I think we are in an absolute unique position. That has to do with all the mega trends we see in the world. It has to do with the green shift. It has to do with our position in technology, the fact that we are a very global economy. When I sit with Skyfall at the lunch in Wergelandsveien 7, we sit with Airthings. Are the people from Airthings there? I don't know. What we see is that more than 90% of the people in Airthings are not Norwegian. I sit with Arundo. 88% of the employees are not Norwegian. We are very attractive for talent. So the things I would like to see is that we shortcut basically the process of bringing great talent into Norway. We have so many opportunities. It was a great initiative by Oslo Business Region at Arendalsuka, together with the municipality, to actually accelerate the process for people from outside of Europe to come in 3 days to join tech companies. So bringing capital to Norway, talent to Norway, and then leveraging the fact that we have the biggest high yield market for debt in Europe to support quite risky projects in the renewable energy arena, and match that with the venture capital side. Because to scale stuff in the green shift, I think we need to bring both venture mindset and scaling mindset.
Yeah.
And there we are quite unique in Norway. So there's so much to do, lots of hard work, but I'm incredibly optimistic.
Yeah, and so we're able and capable of taking risk. We have funding interest from outside and within. We have now we have 10, 15, 20 active VCs nationally, and there's international interest coming in. And what you mentioned is there is movement now when it comes to talent as well with this kompetansespor. And I think the reason why that is coming now is that for the last 10 years, within politics, næringspolitikk has been relatively uninteresting. It has not been amongst the winning causes. I've been talking to a lot of politicians saying that that is changing now. The world is a little bit harder. We're going into we are in a recessionary time, and then næringspolitikk becomes a winning thing. So it's the right timing to get politics changed and do things like that. So kompetansespor, it takes that's a test pilot in Oslo. It takes 3 days instead of a year to get talented people in. If that works in Oslo, we're rolling it out to Norway. So things are happening within politics and talent, and those things are happening because of the downturn we are in. So the downturns also create opportunities.
And just to close off, Anders, but we're punching from below, right? Who doesn't love an underdog? We're the underdog story now. So I think it's just to keep on.
That's a good... Let's get the underdogs, the founders up. Thank you. With that, can I get Jeanette, Geir Atle and Tuk up? Riktig merke, det er bra. Halla. Just... Okay, cool. So I think it's interesting to get kind of the investors side of it first. And if we were to go 2 years back, they would be, in a way, selling themselves, being the most founder-friendly, having the best perks, having no terms at all for the money that they would throw at you. That was kind of the climate that the international VC scene and investor scene was in 2 to 3 years ago. And I think your experience over the last 2 years, or at least kind of 1.5 years, hasn't been fully that way. I'm a founder as well. For me, it has not been that way. So I'm very curious to hear, because as I said, I think all good founders, you're representatives of great founders with success in the scale-up kind of stage in Norway. And the narrative outwards, whenever somebody asks me about Mesh, how's it going? Oh, it's great. We have these great projects coming. We're doing that, and we're doing that, and we're expanding to there, and it's so much fun. You should join us. We all do that, right? Let's be honest about that. And then when we sit down without cameras and 200 people, we talk about, oh, shit, that investor was shit. That round was super hard, and I had to do this and that, and back home with the kids, and la, 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 la. So I would like to get a little bit more kind of the kind of deeper story on how the last year plus has been. And then we'll end up with you who are in this interesting position where your startup is kind of in a good position maybe for the changes that we're in. But Jeanette, I know you are, in my opinion, one of the most persistent founders, which is in startup world a very kind of high trait to have. I've known you for, I don't know, 12, 13 years, and you've been hardcore at it through ups and downs for that period. So you've been through the highs and lows, and you managed to raise, you managed to expand, you managed to change your company within all those times. So you have a lot of experience to draw on, and you've managed to get through it until now. And you had you closed the round in December last year. So how was that round compared to kind of say more hype years or good time years?
Yeah.
Sett meg der, ja.
Can you hear me? Okay, I have a, can you hear me again? No?
I think you have a mygg actually.
It doesn't work, I think. It does work, okay.
Yeah.
Because it fell on the floor. Sorry about that. Yeah, talking about underdog. There's a few things. I'm in black and white there, by the way. That's I'm the only girl. But there's a few founders here. They're female, which is great. That's also an underdog. Second thing being an underdog is try to do consumer in the Norwegian market. No one of the ventures are interested. We really have to find investors from different places, which has been difficult from the beginning. But thank you for that compliment, Anders. I have to brag a little bit because we were sitting in the beginning here with Kahoot on one side, Unicast on the other side, douchebags on the third side, and everyone's like rocketing. And we were like, we're here, we're taking it a little bit slow, but we're coming.
And you had the typical super ambitious startup idea, right?
Exactly. We were as ambitious.
Instagram, shop, boom.
Let's do the Instagrammable shoppable. Yeah, it was a big, hairy goal. But it took a few years. We got out of Telenor because Telenor was their owner, and we started in 2018. Actually, it happened here, and because of Anders, and with the marketer, we had Andreas over here, who's with me, who's still in Villoid. But it was really like an underdog moment when we started, because we had to hustle to find the money somewhere. B2C is not something that the Norwegian investor market are interested in. Are you agreeing a little bit? Apart from maybe douchebags now DB, which is a brand, which is different. But the great news right now is that we closed the capital round in December, which was very tough, and I will get back to that. And we also found other financing opportunities, amongst them from some Antler companies. Trond, are you still here? He's a big fan of, he's Mr. Antler as well. And we've been able to now close a funding round that will take us to 1 billion Norwegian kroners without getting additional capital. And we are super excited and super proud. And in December...
A little clap for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think we have our CFO here as well, Peder over here. Who's the CFO and who's been extremely great at managing this cash flow, because it's a cash flow game.
And now you know the expectation. No more money before you reach 1 billion in revenue.
And one of our investors are here, and I remember when we tried to get him on board, and Bjarne, where are you, Bjarne? He said to me, but this is a cash flow game. And that kind of, in the middle of the night in December also, Bjarne told me this was a cash flow game. But then we finally managed to close it. It was all about, when are you guys profitable? Turn it around.
Yeah, so that was the new thing. When are you
that was a new thing.
What are your numbers?
It was no more like the growth is fantastic, the market is 0, we're growing at 100%, that's great. We're going to take that position, because in Norway, 50% of the retail market when it comes to e-commerce goes abroad, because the Norwegian retail market has been sovet i timen, as we say, has been a little bit like not following that. Are we having a applause over here? That's good.
Yeah. So you had to hustle, and you had to use those skills that you have, and you're very good at that. So when you hustled, what was it that you did? How did the market change? What was the strategy that you chose to follow now?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have done in the beginning, and we're a team, and I think the culture of the company is to understand that the market conditions will always change, and money has never been an easy task to get money for a B2C company. So for me, it's been extremely important to have a plan B at any time, at every time. So what we eventually convinced our investors about is that our data and insights will make us extremely profitable extremely fast, if that's what you want. And we just released our first 6 months report, and we went from growing 90% with a little bit of loss to turn it around and still growing almost 65%, but now we have profitable numbers, which is due to the tech. So I think what we learned from that was to try to convince the investors that we are ready to change. We can go from taking that position to show you profitable numbers and convince them that that was believable, which is very good.
You had to go from potential to more conservative, rational, positive numbers and prove yourself.
Exactly.
But you managed to do that, and that was the strategy that you chose to follow.
We had to really change because we wanted to take the position, because we know that the EBIT will be 10% when we reach our positions. Because why should a retailer in Germany or in China own the Norwegian market digitally? It doesn't make any sense to us. But so we just wanted to be big enough to have good enough contracts and conditions with our retailers, so we were able to be profitable. But we weren't able to think about like we should be profitable now. We just were focused on getting to that position. But all of a sudden in December we realized we have to show them that we are profitable now. Yeah. And that's changed for everyone that I've spoken to, and it happened really quickly. And it's a little bit different in a retail business because you then have a little bit of a longer way of changing. But we did it, and we're really proud about it.
Well done. You should be. I want to get Tuk in as well, because you're talking about kind of B2C. That has not traditionally been one of the kind of most popular spaces in Norway. One of the most popular spaces, if you only go 1 or 2 years back, was definitely crypto. I had my 2 cousins. One is a radio guy, another works within art, and they were buying crypto like crazy and talking about all these insane projects that were going to make them super rich so they can retire within a couple of years. That was the Christmas 2 years ago. We also had a TechTownHall only kind of a year or 2 ago, where everything was booming. So you were in the kind of AI of 2021 space, and it was booming, and it has the potential that is kind of at a very, 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 very high level. So I think it is a kind of especially interesting to hear from the sectors that were the most kind of that had the most momentum, how it has been to go from that, because you must have then gotten kind of into a mindset where Dune raised 1 billion kroner almost with 19 people, and you had those Instagram stories that everybody were laughing at 5 years ago internationally. You started getting that in Norway within that space, and you were one of the. And you are one of the kind of the best founders within that space with one of the kind of most important companies. So take us a little bit through how your last 2 years have been.
Does this microphone work?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. So how should I say? The last 2 years has been quite a roller coaster, I guess.
Yeah.
Having kids, I now have 3 kids. I started this company with 0 kids.
That's actually a topic for one of these tech town halls. How to run and operate companies with small kids. A lot of us have that problem. Me included, yeah.
So it's been fun, really. But going into like how we became like a company, we really struggled getting started, like getting bootstrapped for a couple of years. We joined the factory. I think Ingar was here, but I think he had to go. But going into that program made me understand that being a good developer doesn't help anything if you can't sell. Because that's my background. I build stuff. I don't really sell stuff. I thought that technology could sell itself, but it didn't. So when we, for the first time, changed our, go-to-market strategy, it really started working. Like, how can we sell a product without any knowledge of marketing? And when we began, I think it was that was like even in 2019, I think. And everybody in the company was working full time as consultants, and then we worked full time on this, and it was no income. I think we're at like 1,000 kroners in 2019 or something. But this was really fun. A good point to start from to get 10,000% growth. Yeah, of course. It's all about the numbers, the percentages. But going from there, I think one of the things that is the most important, I guess, in our history is we have faced, I think, like 1 billion times this fight or flight situations. You either stand there and you fight it, or you can run and do something else.
Okay, please build on that. So, so you started with kind of, you went to factory. That kind of made you go a little bit from being kind of just a developer to understanding the marketing and sales game.
Yeah.
And then you were in these fight or flight moments. And you started when the kind of part of ecosystem was maturing a little bit more. But the founder still and the kind of the team ends up with having to solve the problems. But how did you kind of use your investors? Did you have a group of people around you that you could use to figure out what to do? Or were you lying awake, sweating, trying to come up with some crazy plan?
No,
at
I
several points?
I sleep really well.
You sleep well. Well, that's
Well,
good.
except for last year. But for my own sake, I think the first thing was, should I keep doing this and hope that the revenue keeps up? Or should I just do what I do best, is do consultancy?
Yeah.
Because the team, they were just following me,
So,
basically.
yeah, so the risk aversion started kicking in a little bit when it got very
it
hard.
began with my wife saying, are you sure you want to stay awake every night
Yeah.
and work on this instead of sleeping?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, it's fun. So she let me do it. So I just kept doing it. But when we started deciding, okay, we should do something more than just like having fun, build cool stuff, and see nobody use it. That's when it really started, right? So we began to, okay, how do you think this area is going to develop here in Norway? It was no regulation. The FSA hadn't heard about crypto, I guess. When we knocked on the door, they said, crypto? Oh, no crypto. You don't need anything. just go along. So we just did it. And suddenly, they wanted everybody to do some sort of registration. And then when we showed up, we thought we could just send in like a one-pager Google Doc saying, hi, we want the registration. Please give it to us. And then we just like a case worker saying, this is probably one of the thinnest piece of paper I've ever seen. I need to know more. How do you do risk? Like, risk? What risk? It's transparent. It's on the blockchain. There's no risk. And that's the second thing. What do I do now? I know nothing about regulation. I know nothing about legal. So that's when we just started reaching out. What do we do now? So we just had to start reading.
Yeah.
How do banks do it? I do tech, so I just began to read about risk engines.
Yeah.
How do you build a risk engine?
Yeah.
Okay, what factor do you need to know and decide what to look at? And that's when it started. Now we built like a risk engine, taking in like 70 factors on our users in real time. We do calculation in real time. Every click on our platform will give you an exact risk score. Both everything happens on Theory and everything you also do on all addresses related to you on the blockchain.
Yeah.
So if you do something on Theory, it's fine. You send something to dark markets, you'll be tagged instantly. So you can't do anything more. And that's how it started. When we did that, we went back to the FSA, they gave us our registration. Suddenly, somehow, customers found us. I guess Bitcoin was cool again after the dump in 2018. It started, building up. We started to focus more. We somehow found that VIPs were going to release like VIPs login. COVID happened. We doubled down. We worked at home. Suddenly, work wasn't work anymore. It was just free time, I guess. And then when we really focused, the momentum picked up. And then we said, it has to be some sort of capital out there. I can't keep funding this all by myself or the rest of us. So we had to find a plan how we actually were going to scale this. And then one on our team, he knew some people at, I think, Catapult.
Yeah, I just want to just because I've managed a little bit, so we used a little bit long time.
Yeah. Sorry.
Because what happened was that you got a lot of momentum, you got a lot of great investors. You were your valuation rose to $1 billion-ish or more, right?
Yeah, very close.
Yeah, so you were in that kind of segment, and then kind of the situation we are in right now, as so many of us in the kind of founder community, you've had to adjust to a new reality where it's not the kind of shiny new thing. And there's not the hype that everybody wants to get in on. So kind of the concrete question is, how did you change the strategy to cope with kind of a down route, motivating the team and getting to the next stage when that reality hit?
True transparency, like opening up everything.
Yeah.
The books, all internal meetings, all meetings in leadership. They knew everything. Town hall meetings every Friday. They had reports on everything we did.
Okay, but then it's a little bit to what Jeanette said.
Yeah.
The actual quality of the company
Yeah.
was what made it possible to raise money, and you couldn't raise on the hype or potential. You had to raise on the actual numbers. So a full transparency, due deal on the details is what kind of got you through that period, and that was the strategy. I guess that's a good strategy.
Yeah.
I think one piece of advice I got from, I think it was Tellef Torleifsson 10, 12 years ago, was that the best way to get a lot of funding is to build a great company. So I was like, oh, shit, that's a good idea. Okay, Gratle, you're in an interesting position. And I want to kind of round off with you, and then kind of you can also have kind of one piece of advice for the founders here. How has this last period been for you? Because you represent a new funding opportunity, perhaps, for a lot of the people here. And you've also tried to build a company that has built on the potential, and now you have to build on the kind of results as everybody else. But give us a little bit, I just think it's interesting with you being a kind of a mix of the kind of funder and founder perspective here.
Sure. So for all of you who don't know, Funding Partner is a crowd lending platform. So right now we're the biggest crowdfunding platform in the Nordics. Q2, we took that scalp, so that was kind of cool. And both of these companies, actually, Firi and Veloid, has both used crowdfunding. So in the last couple of years, crowdfunding has gone from 0 in 2018, I think, in Norway, to now being like a couple of billions NOK in terms of crowdfunding market. So it actually is a source of funding. And what you've kind of seen the last couple of years is that more and more people look to it, and since the capital market that has been thoroughly discussed today has gotten tougher and tougher, that basically means that more and more people look into crowdfunding as an option. So as both crypto has experienced, as crowdfunding is experiencing, is that we all become more and more known, we've seen as more professional and kind of more serious. Even the FSA, Finanstilsynet, is considering us more and more professional. So I think all of this is just making the ecosystem better and more as an option for everybody. And the quality of everybody on the platforms right now is X times better than those who came out in 2018 and 19. So basically the quality is just improving, and I think it makes the whole ecosystem better. So I guess that's one positive note that I think is that there's definitely capital out there. All the people on the board here earlier today have a lot of money still, so they're willing to invest if they find good companies, and we still haven't put out a single case on our platform that we haven't been able to fill. So basically funding is out there, but it's more expensive and it's tougher, and you need to have an even better quality or better company. So if you build a great company, there's definitely capital out there. So if I'm gonna give an...
Yeah, I think that's actually a very kind of, in a way, a good closing note. That things have changed. You need to kind of prove your quality. You need to hustle, and there are other alternatives that needs to be explored. It's not just the VC route with proving your potential. There are other things, and we are in a maturing market, even though we're in a kind of downturn of it. So there are opportunities. I think that was a little bit of the sunlight that we wanted at the end. What you call it? Noens død er en annens brød. You're gonna be the next unicorn from this batch, perhaps. I think I want to say thank you very much to you. And thank you very much to the whole panel and the Hall of Famers that contributed. I was going to mention one little thing that was launched during Arendalsuka, which we were a part of. So I'm going to use 3 minutes before I want to let all of you roam around in the building, have a look at all the pictures, go to the rooftop. There is a tent over the DJ booth, so you can get some food down here, take it up. If it starts lightning and thundering and raining, you'll be 100 people in a small tent. That's fun. But what I wanted to mention quick, which I think builds on a little bit what we've been talking about today, so I'll go to the beginning, is that we are in this kind of crisis stages now. Or kind of when we in 10 years look back, you'll have 2000 as the .com. You'll have 2008. You'll have 2022. So we're in that stage now where things are resetting, and that's also a kind of period for opportunity. In the startup ecosystem. The startup ecosystem is a complex thing. I think that's what we've been talking about. It is maturing. You need a full market within the financing part. You need a full market, kind of nationally and internationally, to be able to sell and collaborate. You need talent from kind of local talent to be able to attract international talent. It is a complex thing, and all those parts need to work together. And if you look at Norway, and the reason why we are as kind of well off as we are, it is because of private and public collaboration. So our kind of whole oil age is built on that. Our grandparents are the kind of true pioneers. You have the Vikings, and then you have our grandparents that kind of built the country that we kind of take the frukter of now. Go easy on the beer and finish this off smoothly. So my point is, I think this crisis now is kind of our chance as a startup scene to really affect things politically. Næringspolitikk is at the top of the agenda for politicians now, and if we wait 3, 4, 5 years, we're going to be in some kind of norm, and it's going to be not that interesting again. And some of us here, Johan, Trond, Jeanette, several of us have been a part of, for example, Gründeroppropet in 2016. We went out, shouted, made this 30-pager and 10 things the government should do, and we got meetings with the prime ministers and all other ministers, and we sat in their houses, and it was cool and it felt important. And then that much didn't happen after that, and that was my next picture, because after that, we didn't have a full plan for where we were going to land it and what we professionally were going to do. So after that, the 15 people that were a part of Gründeroppropet and the kind of 50 to 100 others that were central in the startup ecosystem, they went in all directions, talking about we should do stock options, we should do this with formuesskatten, we should do something within that sector, or that sector, and that sector. And what it ended with was a couple of wins within a couple of fields. But in general, the politicians looked to us and thought this is an immature stage, very hard to work with. We'll come back in 5 to 10 years when you manage to professionalize and you manage to talk with a strong, powerful voice, and when you manage to align and do something at a higher level. So we weren't taken that serious. And I think we deserved not to be taken that serious because we were unprofessional and immature in that field. So I and others have been inspired by what has been happening in our neighboring countries. So this is how it looks in Norway right now. You have 50 hodeløse høns running around talking to politicians and in media. If you go to Denmark, this is what happened. Huh? Yeah, that's how we run the companies as well. But if you go to Denmark, this is how it looks. You had 50 founders of all the greatest companies, the strongest ecosystem voices. They all got together during Corona, and they decided that now let's unite our voices. Let's try to find a structure and professionalize and find some points and get some power towards the political side. So in Arendalsuka last week, we launched an initiative. We've been talking about this for a long time. Politics is always something that everybody talks about. And what we need to do, I think, is we need to align and we need to manage to do what they've done in Denmark. They're doing something similar in Sweden. They're doing something similar in Finland. And we've been talking. These TechTownHalls, it's been a topic for 2 or 3 of them. So together with the factory, Startup Lab, Startup Trondheim, and also with a lot of help from Fredrik and Catapult, we have put aside 100,000 kroners each. And we've hired Mats Blybakken, who sits over there, 40% to do the grunt work, because that's the problem. There's a lot of grunt work. Establishing an organization, what are the vedtekter, the web page, this and that, what are going to meet, the political foundation. And last week in Arendalsuka, we presented the initiative. So there was a story about it in Shifter last week. We presented an initiative where our goal is to create a unified political voice and an organization that works together with the other Nordic startup organizations and also NVCA, the venture capital organization. So typically, the venture capitalists that have a little bit more time and a little bit more money and are a little bit more opptatt av power, they've had that organization for 10, I don't know, 20 years, whilst we are thinking about it now. So we in my opinion, we got to do that. And I would urge everybody to go in to mtsa.no and sign up if you're interested in it. What we will do now, this group, is that we will start getting engaged founders into the group, and we will set the political blueprint, we will set how it's organized, and we will set what the ambition for it is. And if we agree as a kind of startup community that we should do this and we want to do it, we will create an organization with an employee or two. If we don't manage to do that, at least kind of it will land at being a political alliance, aligning us a little bit better. But that initiative is launched. Our hope is that that becomes the political organization that is the founders' political organization, where we function as a niche political organization, just like NVCA does. So you'll hear more about this in the coming months, and I hope that everybody supports it and spreads it, and that this becomes the kind of political voice that we need. And lastly, the reason for doing it now is that there's an election in 2025, and the momentum is right now. And if we are to actually going to affect politics, we won't do it through media, we won't do it in a day or two, we'll do it in a 2-year horizon. So that's the right timing to start something like that, and we have to build from now. So, yeah. Cool. I wanna close off with that, and then head up to the tent upstairs, look at all the pictures, ask the Hall of Famers about their things in their rooms, and have a good time. We're open here at least till 8 with food and drinks, and the food is coming here now. So enjoy. Thank you.